And tomorrow here at Queen's Park, a mini budget will be revealed, the fall economic statement. Now, we know that the deficit is lower, significantly lower than what the Ford government originally stated. So perhaps maybe they'll have some wiggle room to ease up on some of their austerity measures. But here's the thing, there's lots of confusion over exactly what the deficit is, because it varies depending on which party you ask. Lots of confusion. Let me try and wade through some of the numbers for you.
We have a $15 billion scandal on our hands, and we're going to get down to the bottom of it.
When Doug Ford first came to power, his government claimed they inherited a $15 billion deficit from the Wynne Liberals. But public accounts released in September show it was half that, $7.4 billion. It's led to many accusations the Conservatives intentionally inflated the deficit to justify deep cuts, which the government firmly denies.
Oh, I reject that outright. The revenues are going up because the economy is stronger, and we found efficiencies and savings.
Peter Bethlen-Falvey is president of the Treasury Board. In other words, he holds all the purse strings.
With these more fiscally rosy numbers that you now have, do you think that the government will have more wiggle room to invest more into health and education?
So, in absolute numbers, the investments in health care have gone up. The investments in education have gone up in absolute. And I know something about this a little bit because I write the checks.
So there is another area where the numbers are disputed.
They say they're putting more money than ever before into health and education.
Well, and we know that that's just not true. I mean, you can't fund these services at a rate that's below the inflationary rate with a growing population and claim that that's an increase in funding. It's not. It's at the best holding the line, in other words, a freeze. But in fact, with population growth and inflation, especially in healthcare, but also in education, it is in fact a deep cut to the services.
Now back to the deficit. To make matters even more complicated, the Liberals claim the deficit is actually far less than $7.4 billion. They maintain the $2.5 billion teachers' pension plan should be an asset, which would lower the deficit further. But the Conservatives haven't done so.
Inside that number are accounting practices that are still inflating the deficit, and that's what the problem is, because it's coming out of services.
So you say it's more like $5 billion, not $7 billion.
I would say
I
would say if you took the pension out, it makes it about $4.9 billion.
The Liberals also claim the deficit could be under $1 billion if hydro rates and the cancellation of wind contracts was put on the rate base, not the tax base.
That leaves actually about $700 million if you change that accounting.
Confused yet? Well, you're not alone.
The day I hear a government actually be honest about what the true deficit numbers are, it will be like Christmas for me.
Similarly, we are little accounting wizardry going on. Now, while the PCs here have been accused of overinflating the deficit, well, just 6 weeks before the last election, the Auditor General accused the Liberals of lowballing the deficit by billions. So what's the true deficit? Well, one thing I can tell you for sure after the economic statement tomorrow, the parties probably won't agree.